Well, hello everybody. How's it going? Welcome to another episode of Slidin into my DMs. And welcome, as always, to my DMs. Joining us today, we have Corey, as always, Preston, and then joining for the first time in a long time, we've got the Dungeon Mistress herself, Tori. So great to have you guys, and thanks for being here. Yeah, Mr. Rogers is suffering through his second round of COVID vaccination. So
wait, hold on. So when Mr. Rogers is not here, he gets an actual explanation, but when I'm not here, I die.
You're dead.
Is that what we do? Okay, all right, sure. I just wanted to know where I stood. That's fine.
So I'm excited actually to jump into stuff today. So we're just going to kind of get right to it. We did just a few days ago, we recorded our 10K celebratory episode, which was amazing.
My voice hurts from it.
Corey is so glad that that's over with.
Oh, it's not over.
Okay.
There's so much we're doing
chapter
still.
One is over. Yeah, we should probably be posting that within a day or two. I guess it depends on what happens over the weekend with subscribers and things.
Yeah, and depends on how the editing goes.
But anyway, so excited to share that with you guys. Looking forward to hitting that milestone. It'll be great. And then also, let's see, next week, I'm going to have a regular episode on Tuesday as usual. And then the week after that, just FYI, is when we're going to be releasing, Treant Monk and I are going to be releasing our collaboration video. So that will sort of take the place of my normal episode for that week. So just a little FYI on what's coming. And yeah, today I want to talk about two things. The Unearthed Arcana that was recently announced, which we'll get to in a little bit, but then maybe kind of in lieu of a quick ruling this week, which we typically will do, I wanted to talk about Necromancers and the Animate Dead spell and the sort of challenge with running a necromancer with lots of undead minions. For those who haven't seen, earlier this week I released my episode 36, which was a team up build, the Necromancer and the Oathbreaker Paladin. Right? So check that out if you haven't. But a big part of the conversation that I was sort of having with you guys during that video was the challenge of trying to actually, do in game what the character seems capable of doing, right? You either, it feels broken to me because, and I don't need to rehash everything, right? But it seems like it's either way too powerful or fairly easily trivialized, and with not a lot of space in between, unless we sort of maybe find ways to put some constraints on it ourselves and or compromise with our DMs on, what we can and can't do, how many undead minions we can summon, how powerful they can be, maybe as a way of compromise of getting fewer of them. So really, basically what I wanted to do is kind of get your guys' opinion. I sort of already expressed in the video my own thoughts and ideas on how you might potentially balance this particular character and playstyle. But yeah, I'm wondering if you guys could share with me your thoughts on what you might do. I did get a lot of great comments from people who had some great ideas. But people can read those comments. I want to know what you guys think. So why don't we start, Corey? You have just recently completed a Curse of Strahd campaign with us.
Yes.
In the which your brother Scott was playing a necromancer, and we were only level 7, I think, by the time it ended, 7 or 8, 8 anyway. So it never got too crazy, but you definitely started to see some of that sort of challenge. And so, having very recently experienced it, why don't you start us off with your thoughts?
Sure. So first of all, I don't think that a player who wants to play a necromancer should ever do it for optimization. And I know that's kind of the point of this channel, and it's great. it's a great thought experiment
Yeah.
to run, to be like, how much damage could I do? How many undead could I get with this? But in reality, as a player, you should realize that you would be making the game less fun for everybody else if your turns took 20 minutes. And I know it sucks, because the idea is that you want to do everything within the confines of the rules, and you want to do the build that looks really good, because that's how necromancers
and
can
just
be built.
Stretch it to the limit of what it can possibly achieve.
Yeah, but I think the biggest mistake that optimizers make is that just because something can be built a way doesn't mean that it should be built that way. It's very easy to fall into the trap of, there's only one way to play a rogue, there's only one way to play a monk, which is not to. There's only one way to play a ranger, or any of these characters. Like,
it's true.
He's coming out swinging.
Yeah, like there's a lot of people who just think like, oh, if I don't do this, then I'm not playing the game correctly, and there is no correct way to play D&D. Like, it's a game of literally flailing your arms and hoping that you're doing something fun rather than doing something good. However, if there's a player who wants to run a necromancer and optimize, here's some tips just to keep them fairly normalized. The necromancer that I had to deal with, my brother and I were able to communicate quite well, which, again, number one, communicate with your players, always communicate with your GM, so that you can kind of talk about where you want things to go and how you want your character to go, and kind of make it so that everybody feels a lot more balanced and how everybody's contributing. But number one, make corpses scarce. There was a huge premium on corpses for our necromancer in Barovia, by the way, where they couldn't find enough skeletons and zombies to raise. They had to struggle with that, and there were a couple times where they're like, I literally can't do anything else. Can I use these wolves and shape their bones and everything? And I am a noble and generous and very humble DM, so I said yes. If a necromancer came up to me, or a player who wanted to play a necromancer, no necromancer ever comes up to me. Well, maybe they do. I don't know. If they came up to me specifically with the desire to create an army of undead, I'd be upfront with them about how difficult that is going to be to manage, both for them and for me. I would definitely communicate with them and make sure that, like, hey, let's see if we can come to a compromise. Maybe you can't have more than 8 at a time. But you can potentially upgrade them, like you suggested, Colby, in certain ways, giving them magic items or making their attack stronger later on, just because that's a really cool idea.
Yeah. And
the necromancer that we had did eventually get like a custom skeleton towards the end, because we came up with a really cool idea and implemented it to be, okay, this skeleton acts this way, but it can't use these abilities and things like that.
Right. Yeah, it seems to me like the biggest challenge with necromancy and Animate Dead in particular is just the sheer volume, right, of skeletons, and so you sort of are almost forced, outside of a few certain situations. Maybe you're playing a campaign that's always outdoors. You've got a great and very efficient way to like roll the hits and like all those things, right? Everybody, including the other players at the table, are all on board, and you've got it streamlined. You could probably make it work, but outside of that, the challenge is in the volume, right? And so it feels to me like the easiest solution would be to, instead of increase the number of undead that you can raise, with each additional spell slot that you use to cast the spell, increase the potency of the skeletons themselves, and keep it capped at 3, whatever.
And to be honest, I think that most players will regulate their own spell slots a little bit to make sure that they don't have too large of an army, because it's a really cool idea to have 70 skeletons, but what's not cool is only having 2nd and 1st level spell slots,
Right.
So having to kind of pull back on that. And I think our necromancer even did this, where he was like, okay, I'm only going to cast 2 spell slots worth, or 2 3rd level spell slots to maintain these 8 that I have, and he used them more as a protective shield, extra damage kind of thing. And at that point it just becomes, you know, like a fireball or like a scorching ray, an additional scorching ray every turn, you know.
And even then, right, there was, I mean, at the end there when we were fighting Strahd himself, it was like there's only so many squares, you know, if you're playing on a grid, right? And Strahd was smart and he backed himself up against a wall, so now there was only like 5 squares basically, and some of our players were like, oh, like I can't get in to make an attack because there's zombies in the way or whatever. So
and that's something that, you know, as in combat, if you need to make a gap, that's something that you go, wizard, you know, get these out of my way, I need to get in there, and then the wizard can have them shift. And I think that that's going to be an issue with any sort of conjuration, even your Pokemon master build or anything is going to have an issue with space. So if you're a DM and you're running that campaign, you may want to increase the size of certain issue or areas, or create some extra fodder that the skeletons have to fight off as well.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, what do you think, Tori? That might have been your first experience, I think, seeing a necromancer in action. But having watched the video and put some thought into it, I mean, what are your thoughts on maybe ways to balance?
Yeah, like I love the idea of playing a necromancer. I think of like Michonne from The Walking Dead having like her zombies on a leash. I was like, that would be so fun to play as a player. That'd be awesome. But I definitely see the challenge as a DM, making sure that everything is balanced and that it's not taking away opportunities from the other players. But I think it would be fun to, you know, session by session, give them an opportunity to say, like, okay, this time we're going to be in this setting where you could have a huge army. Let's give it a shot. Let's see how it goes for this session. And then the next one, you know, we're in a place where you can't have that. You're going to have to get rid of some of these and take it by session. I think would be fun to try both ways.
Yeah, I like that. Just make sure that you have like a convenient cliff for your skeletons that you're not going to use this time to like jump off of.
An ancient dragon just comes by. Well, you can always have some of those the story beat moments where the big bad comes in or something and incapacitates or knocks out that necromancer, and now you've got 70 rampant skeletons that just turned on everyone. Like not like, especially in those moments where it's like, okay, you're building this up, you got to see the risk and the reward here, but don't punish them for being a necromancer, but give them cool story elements that also make it so that the action economy isn't just, you know, in the favor of that necromancer the whole game, because then it bogs it down and makes it a little slower. But
I would also, like, if that was going to be a case, I'd do that once, and if the necromancer's like, okay, well, I don't want to put my party at risk, you help them create a spell or magic item that they can basically have like a collar on the neck, and then if they ever go unconscious, it self-destructs the undead. Like, that would be really cool.
Turn undead or destroy undead.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think regardless, if you have skeletons, you need to teach them the Silly Symphony's skeleton dance. Right?
I agree, but I think I would probably lean towards the heavily homebrewing that kind of stuff for that upgrades, being able to say, hey, if you want to have them equipped with one of your spears, sure, and then, you know, when that skeleton gets eaten by the monster, then so does that spear. So
I would love to play. I think I would really enjoy playing this duo in particular, playing as like the Oathbreaker paladin, and just having like just a small, almost like a strike squad, you know what I mean, like of give me like three undead, but as we level, they sort of level too, right?
Yeah.
And they get to benefit from my aura, so I feel cool about, you know, being able to give them some extra damage and extra, and I'm buffing them with temporary hit points at the beginning of every. My favorite comments so far in the video have been people saying what they would use for their inspired leader speech to the skeletons, you know, things like first person to kill the archmage gets a new corpse or something like that, like
gets to be resurrected.
How awesome would that be, by the way? Like, you have a high level cleric that can cast whatever resurrection spell, like they have to have been dead within like 100 years or something like that, and you actually like resurrect that skeleton as a reward, and now you have like a sidekick or something think it would be so cool.
If anybody wants to see any really good Necromancer talk about that, go check out the Awaken Online Catharsis book. It is a lit RPG book where the main character finds out how to become a Necromancer and becomes basically the bad guy, and it's really cool. I absolutely love it, and it definitely makes for a better story if you have undead that progress with you.
Yeah, I agree. I like it.
One last thing, from a story-driven standpoint, if you're looking for, as a DM, if you're looking for ways to try and still reward that necromancer, but also maybe help them shy away from doing the 70 skeletons, one of the things I did in one of my other campaigns was that, like the Red Wizards of Thay, right? One of his whole shticks was that all of the people who were in his employ were people who had died or who were about to die. They made a contract to basically be in his servitude, and then he paid the family for that corpse, right? So it wasn't like going and grave robbing and stealing whatever. It was, there was some kind of a transaction. So if you wanted, you could always put some kind of a system in place like that where yeah, sure, you if you want a corpse, that's great, but it's going to cost you a little bit of gold to be able to get stuff. But again, like, don't punish your players. If they're playing a necromancer, it's for thematic reasons. Yeah. And you don't want them to feel...
You try and work with your players because it sounds like a lot more fun to have somebody who is constantly managing a small little force and outfitting them and trying to get them into towns when, like I had a lot of fun doing all of that stuff with the necromancer that we played with.
Yeah. They all had robes and they had to make like deception checks and stuff like that, trying to get into town. All right. Well, cool. Okay. Let's leave necromancy behind then for a little bit and move on to the Unearthed.
We'll bring it back from the dead later.
we'll necro.
Hey, if you want to raise a question in the comments, feel free.
Bunch of dad jokes, and we're back. Thanks to our sponsors. Preston, tell me about the background you've got there today. What is this?
This is a painting that I did. It's a digital painting. It's called Monster Under My Bed.
That is awesome.
There's a lot of hidden personal meanings in this, but...
Well, that's a big monster and a small bed.
This is the little teddy bear I had as a little boy.
Nice.
This is my daughter before she was born, and my ballerina. That's for my mom. She did ballet.
Cool.
There's a bunch of other... whatever stuff.
So what kind of seer did you go to get what your daughter looked like before she was born? That's incredible.
I know, right?
Okay. Unearthed Arcana. So here's something about me. I'm like the most cliche, boring, like fantasy fan ever. Like my favorite race is elves. My favorite monsters are dragons. And like, I'm so excited about this particular Unearthed Arcana because it's all about dragons.
It's so cool.
It's fantastic. So, it's the Draconic Options released just yesterday as of this recording, so April 14th. And we wanted to talk about it today. So we're going to go through kind of like we did with the last Unearthed Arcana and just sort of discuss high level kind of everything, maybe raise some questions, and then at the end have everybody sort of give their critique on whether a particular thing is maybe a little overpowered, a little underpowered, or just right. So
and there's a lot here.
There is a lot, and we'll have to move
7 pages
semi quickly. One thing that I did notice right at the beginning is that it kind of gives you the little prelude like it always does, but then it talked about ability score increases in a new way.
It did.
Which is to say that when determining your character's ability scores, you increase one of those by 2 and another one by 1. You can't do the same one, or you can pick 3 ability scores and increase each of them by 1.
Ooh, interesting.
Which
all those 15s become 16s.
You could, using the point buy system, you could start with 3 15s and 3 8s, and then have 3 16s to start off, which of course has my wheels spinning.
Which ones would be your dump stat?
Well, it depends on the character. It depends on the class.
But which one would be your dump stat?
For those, none. I'm charismatic,
your 20s
intelligent, wise, and strong.
And humble.
And humble. For those builds, your paladins and things that are particularly multiple ability score dependent, having 3/16s.
Cool.
If you could stomach the 3/8s, it would be pretty sweet. But anyway, so the first thing that it does is it gives us some new some new race options that are kind of, well, they're sort of alternatives, it looks like, to the Dragonborn as it currently exists. And maybe let me ask this, because Preston, you were going to talk about these races. What do you guys think? We have 3 Dragonborn variants and then a Kobold variant, and I'm wondering, I'm assuming that these would assuming that these go live, that they would kind of go alongside existing options for Dragonborns and Kobold, or do you guys think they're
I would say it's kind of like
take the place of your variant human?
Your variant human. Yeah. That's kind of where I feel like it would fit in that kind of realm.
Yeah. All right. Well, Preston, tell us about these Dragonborn and Kobolds.
So I'm pretty excited. This was really cool because then they made the distinction of you have your chromatic Dragonborns and you have your metallic Dragonborns, and they added a third one called the Gem Dragonborns.
Never heard of Gem Dragons before until I read this Arcana, and I was like, holy crap.
I liked it. It's really cool. So with the chromatic Dragonborn, it's pretty. So there's a lot of these that share very similar features. So I'm going to kind of gloss over. I'll give you kind of the stuff for there, but then I'm going to gloss over it when I get to the other ones. You're still humanoid. Your size is medium. Your walking speed is 30 feet. You do trace your ancestry back to either a chromatic gem or a metallic dragon, depending on which one you go with. And each of those, each chromatic ancestry has your typical, black is acid, blue is lightning, green is poison, red is fire, white is cold, and then same thing with the brass, bronze, copper, gold, silver. So no changes there. But where it gets kind of cool is in the Gem Dragonborn, with the new ones that they actually added Force, Radiant, Psychic, Thunder, and Necrotic damage, which to me, I was like, ooh, like that's tasty in and of itself.
Yeah.
But that's
sort of non-elemental damage types.
Yes, so that's a taste of what's coming down the pipe. But you have your typical, you still have your breath weapons, right? So the chromatic Dragonborn, here's where it gets a little bit different. Your breath weapon is a 30-foot line, 5 feet wide, of whatever damage type it is. So if it's fire, lightning, poison, instead of a 15-foot cone. Because it was always lightning damage as a line, just like if you cast lightning, whereas like acid or poison or fire, cold, or whatever is going to be more kind of a spray.
Yeah. I wonder if that's something they're going to change and adjust depending on player feedback, because that seems interesting that you could do like a 30-foot line of cold, or fire, where it's completely concentrated. That feels flamethrowery.
Exactly. So that's kind of cool about the breath weapon. So that's the thing that the chromatic Dragonborns do, as well as you have your draconic resistance, which basically means whatever type you are. So if you're a black dragon, Dragonborn, your resistance is going to be towards acid, and just kind of whatever color, whatever chromatic gem, whatever, you're going to have half damage on that. And then the one other thing for chromatic dragons that is kind of unique to them is they have what's called chromatic warding. And I'll just read it here just for clarity. But starting at the 3rd level, as an action, you can channel your draconic energies to protect yourself. For 10 minutes, you are immune, not resistant, immune to the damage type you associated with your chromatic ancestry. Yeah. Once you use this trait, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest.
I thought that was interesting. I mean, my initial thought was like, okay, so from now on, every single Bear Totem Barbarian is going to be an Emerald Gem Dragonborn.
Yep, exactly.
Psychic damage, right?
I'm never letting you play a Barbarian.
Don't worry, I'm not interested in Bear Totem. They're boring. But what was interesting to me is that with the chromatic, I don't know, it's like I'm already resistant to this damage type, and now my really cool ability is once per day I get to be immune to it. It's like, it just feels maybe too niche to be particularly appealing to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just
it would definitely be one of those where if you're in the 9 hells and you're a red fire dragon or something, or Dragonborn, then great, that's probably going to help you. But I agree, it's going to be situational where it's going to be beneficial or not.
So the main difference then between these 3 seems to be that they all have their breath weapons, but then they all have resistance to the damage type. But then when they hit 3rd level, they get like a special little feature. So the chromatic one is you get immunity once per day. What's the metallic one?
So the metallic one, you have what's called the metallic breath weapon. So at the 3rd level, you gain a second breath weapon.
That's right.
And basically, when you take your you'll replace one of your actions. So if you make multiple attacks, one of those can be this breath weapon. You exhale in a 15-foot cone. It does the DC on this is going to be 8 plus your Constitution plus your proficiency bonus. And basically, what happens is any creature in that needs to succeed on a strength saving throw, or they'll be pushed 20 feet away from you.
Yeah.
You get to choose one of these, mind you. This is not a, everything. You choose one of the two. And then you have each creature in an area must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or become incapacitated, which
that is
those
huge.
That is strong. They can't take an action or a reaction. They're just
yeah. That is really strong.
Super strong. Like
they can still move and take a bonus action.
Yep.
I think so.
For sure.
Still, I mean, a whole round of enemies like not being able to take actions, or reactions is just that's crazy. Hey, that was Scott.
Yes, it was.
Scott just made a cameo. Hi, Scott.
Hello. I think he forgot we were recording, but
that's where he just kind of opens it up, and then
I have no privacy in this house.
So the last one in here, I guess for the gem Dragonborn, other than the fact that you now have Force, Radiant, Psychic, and Thunder and Necrotic damage, so some of those new to the breath weapons. You also have Psionic Mind, basically lets you talk to somebody, but they cannot it's not like Message where you can say something and they talk back.
Right.
This is just you speaking to their mind.
Free telepathy.
Yeah,
that's pretty
even
strong.
half telepathy.
Yeah.
And then this one's kind of fun for RP, I feel like, is this Gem Flight. Starting at the 3rd level, you can use your bonus action to temporarily summon an array of spectral gems of your gem type, and they basically act as your wings. You gain flying speed equal to your walking speed, and you can hover, which is important.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I don't think that's too overpowered, though. I don't think any of these are too overpowered.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to play an amethyst gem dragonborn now, just so I could be resistant to force damage. Like, I don't know why, but that seems the coolest to me.
Yeah.
But I don't think any of these are super
the crash test dummy of the Arcane Brotherhood or something.
Yeah.
Use force damage on you.
When I see these, my mind immediately goes to, as it usually does, Blade Singers, because these breath weapons, it says that when you take the attack action, you can replace one of your attacks with an exhalation of magical energy. Now, granted, you can only do it proficiency bonus times per day, right? Mm-hmm. But still, like, for example, with a Blade Singer, when they hit 6th level, and they get multi-attack, they can make an attack, and then one of the attacks can be a cantrip. And so I'm thinking, I could like breath weapon for one of my attacks, cantrip for my second attack. If you could find a potent sort of area effect, cantrip like acid splash or something like that. And so I'm thinking if I could get 3 or 4 enemies in a single turn and be able to like breath weapon and then, hit them with a semi-potent cantrip, that's pretty good AoE damage for 2 actions, a few times per day would be fun. Okay, tell us about the kobold, and then we'll ask for your judgment on overpowered, underpowered.
Sounds good. So with the kobolds, everybody's favorite kind of low-level adventuring party.
Punching bag.
These are obviously the smallest draconic creatures. They have some of the attributes, but not. They're basically like the smaller, more squat version. But you are a humanoid. You're small. Your walking speed 30 feet. You have dark vision. Nothing crazy there. You have your draconic legacy, so you have a connection to dragons, but they kind of manifest in unpredictable ways. So you get to select one of these options when you choose this race. You have advantage on saving throws against being frightened. Or end the frightened condition on yourself. You can know one cantrip of your choice from a sorcerer spell list, so you're like innately kind of in tune with nature. And you can use intelligence, wisdom, or charisma as your spellcasting ability. And then you can also make unarmed strikes with your tail.
And it's a D6 as compared to like the usual D4.
It's 1d6 plus your strength, which is kind of cool. So then you're basically kind of going in. You can use that as you will, as just kind of like a small stout. Draconic Roar, as a bonus action, you let out a Draconic Roar at your enemies, at your enemies within 10 feet of you, until the end of. This is the big part. This is really cool. Until the end of your next turn. Your allies have advantage on attack rolls against any of those enemies who could hear that roar, which can be, you're basically getting a free.
You and your allies all have advantage for a round, essentially.
And you can use this number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all of it when you do long rest. So that's where they get. That's where I guess where their strong suit is this kind of like pack tactics kind of thing where you run in, or maybe if you're the raging barbarian, kobold, whatever, you can kind of run in, yell at them, and then have all your teammates pepper them from afar. So,
well, okay, so give us your verdict.
Kobolds,
on these.
Kobolds not overpowered.
Yeah.
Gem Dragonborns potentially, depending on how you mix it with a barbarian. Just in that one specific case. The rest of it feels very flavor. It feels very, very...
Flight's nice, but once a day, I mean...
It's not,
Aarakocra can fly. There's some other UA races that are getting flight.
I do really like the 30-foot line for the chromatic dragons, and the immunity could be... I feel like the metallic dragonborn, honestly, the metallic dragonborn specifically, their breath attack where it makes everybody incapacitated in that cone.
I think that's getting nerfed.
I think is going to get nerfed. But the rest of them I feel like are pretty solid.
Yeah, I think I might agree with you there. Like, I think of all of them, the metallic dragonborn feel the strongest thanks to that incapacitation and the push. I mean, a big push can potentially wreak havoc.
You're on a cliff.
Yeah, or like if you've got if you're a wizard and you set up, I mean, a prismatic wall late game, but I mean, web or a wall of fire or something like that you can sort of push them through, or spike growth. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do with forced movement, right?
Yeah.
The kobolds, I have a hard. Well, I don't know. The thing about the existing kobolds is they have one of the easiest ways to get advantage of any race, right? They have pack tactics, and so as long as the enemy that a kobold is attacking is standing next to one of your friends, you have advantage, always, right? They do have the detriment of the sunlight sensitivity, so if you're in direct sunlight, you have disadvantage, so that potentially balances it. But this roar is awesome, but again, it would give your party advantage for a round. And that's great because it's your whole party, but then proficiency bonus times per day. I mean, 2, 3, 4.
I could see it being probably more beneficial if it was like, hey, let's play a band of kobolds and we're going to go on this adventure and kind of run through that kind of stuff. I could see that being more beneficial. Yeah.
Although,
which would be really cool.
If you were going to play a band of kobolds and you just went with the regular kobolds, then you would always have advantage all the time, as long as you weren't in sunlight, right?
I think when Preston says a band of kobolds, I think he means a literal band of kobolds, as in all bards.
Exactly. Right. He knows me well.
Yes, it's an all-bard kobold band.
Kobolds.
One's named Freddy, the other one's Ozzy.
Whole bards.
Yeah. I don't know.
Playing
Tori,
the schwam.
Yep.
Playing the
Schwam. Worst D&D instrument ever. Tori, any additional thoughts? Anything jump out to you?
No, I love the gem one. That's what I would want to play.
It reminds me. It makes me evokes Spyro for me. Just because they get trapped inside gem, and I've seen some gem dragons since I started looking them up, and I'm like, why have these not been like in monster manuals before now? Or anything like that. It's crazy.
Okay, well let's talk about the feats, but before we do, I just want to note something, and that is that none of these feats are tied to racial prerequisites. Even though they're all dragonborn, dragon affiliated, none of them say that you have to be a dragonborn or a kobold in order to take advantage of these feats, even though you might think that. I'm telling you, the day will come when Wizards is going to unshackle those Xanathar's feats. I'm still I guess I'm dying on that hill. I already died, right? But I'm waiting to be resurrected.
We brought you back. Yeah,
yes,
we brought you back.
There's the necro callback.
Told you.
Anyway, so Tori, tell us about these feats. They look pretty cool.
They're way cool. And to your point, it says that they arise from a draconic source. So whether it's a gift of a true dragon, the manifestation of some draconic heritage, the blessing of a draconic god, or as a consequence of slaying a true dragon. So I love that. It's so cool.
Yeah, very cool.
So there's kind of like three schools, I guess, of these draconic feats. So the first one is the gift of the chromatic dragon. And so these ones are both really damage type based. So the first one allows you to touch a simple or martial weapon, and you can infuse it with a damage type. So acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison. And then for the next minute after you infuse that weapon, you get an extra 1d4 of the whichever damage you've chosen. Mm-hmm. And you can only use it one time per long rest. But I like that. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, you guys.
And then the second one.
I'm loving that. Because I'm always looking for ways to add more damage to every attack, and that's just it doesn't require concentration. The drawbacks are it's a bonus action, and a lot of the times, like if you're using Hunter's Mark, for example, already, like you can have too many things sort of needing your bonus action, and it's only once per day, so that's kind of a bummer. But still, like for one fight per day, an extra D4, it's not a ton, but it adds up, especially if you're making lots of attacks and you have other ways to add damage.
That's cool. Yeah, it's awesome. So the next one in that same chromatic dragon gift is that when you take damage, so be it acid, cold, fire, lightning, or poison, you can use your reaction to give yourself resistance to that damage. So you can use it a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and then once you've expended all those after a long rest, it resets.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's versatile. That is very versatile.
That I think is what makes it really strong, right? Both the damage that you do and the damage that you're resistant to. It doesn't say you have to like choose it when you pick this feat or anything like that. So like depending on the fight, like we're fighting a red dragon, well, I'm resistant to fire damage, or we're fighting somebody that's throwing a lot of cold spells at me, I'm resistant to cold damage. It's pretty.
So cool.
It's like a free it's a free absorb elements spell almost.
And I feel like too, like, because a lot of times, at least RP wise, a lot of my players, whenever they kill a dragon, it's like almost customary where they go and they skin the dragon, they go make some dragon scale armor or something, right? So they get whatever that color dragon resistance for that thing, and I feel like I like the idea of this, of being able to have not an unlock, but like, hey, you just killed the Lich King. Now you got this cool whatever that kind of like brings you up, and you put on the helm, and now you're more powerful or something. You know what I mean? Like,
but you never get that mount. You never get the mount. It's too low.
I do love the idea of rewarding players, like a DM, like granting a boon after slaying a dragon, along these lines.
3 days you have this really awesome thing.
Don't limit it. Come on, permanent. It's permanent.
If it's Colby, one day, maybe a couple hours.
At least 5 minutes.
You have 5 minutes of immune
the
to
dragon's
all damage.
Dead. Go. Find somebody to fight. Hurry,
find another dragon.
The heavens open.
Is there a nest somewhere around here?
Okay,
Stay away from dragon stuff.
What's next? We got chromatic, metallic. Tell us about?
Yes, so gift of metallic. So this is all about like protection and health. So the first one is that you learn the cure wounds spell, and you can cast it without expending a spell slot. You can only do that once per long rest, but then you can also use your spell slots to cast it as well. So pretty great.
That goes along with the trend of learning a spell with a feat, and you can still cast it even if. So basically,
you have spell slots.
Any class can be a healer now as long as you have spell slots.
Yeah. I mean, and you could already obviously, like, there were other feats, magic initiate type feats and things like that, but magic initiate in particular is limited, right? You can't cast it unless they go back and change it. Currently, you can't cast it using existing spell slots unless you have taken class levels in the class that you use to get that spell, which seems a little bit silly. But anyway, Cure Wounds, it doesn't mention what level you cast it at. I have to assume you're casting it at the first level. Unless you're using spell slots.
Yeah. Yep. That would be my assumption.
But that's a great way to bounce somebody back from unconscious, for example, in a pinch. Even if you're not like a dedicated healer, always a good to have in your pocket.
Barbarian, he's like, all right, come back.
Yeah, as long as he's not raging.
Slap you awake.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's so great. And then the next one is one of my favorites. But essentially, when you or another creature that you can see within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you manifest protective wings that come out and they can shield you or that creature. It's so cool. And it's your reaction. You can use that as a reaction.
Heroes never
die.
Yeah.
So cool. Protect them with your wings. And essentially, you roll a d4 to grant a bonus to the target's AC.
Yeah. I think this might be borderline overpowered. I don't know. There aren't a lot of abilities in game that will let you, as a reaction, add armor class to an ally. Right? Like you can take some fighting styles that will let you absorb or impose disadvantage.
Yeah.
Abjuration wizards can like absorb damage with their ward. I mean, there's things like that, but I can't think of a lot of, hey, I'm going to give you an AC buff, essentially casting the shield spell on somebody else.
And if I'm reading this correctly, that's just for one, because when I initially glossed through it, I thought it was saying anyone within 5 feet, but I'm pretty sure it just says the one creature, right?
Yeah, it's
just the one creature. So either yourself
another
or
creature you can see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. It's awesome and it's cool, and it is only a D4 and not 4, right?
Yeah.
So that's on average going to be 2.5. So 2 or 3 AC, but still. And proficiency bonus times per day isn't amazing either. But like, I don't know. I can especially see it being useful on, one of these tank builds that I've created where, I've taken the shield spell already, but you can only use shield, so many times. You've got spell slots, but if you had this in your back pocket as a backup too, it's like, man, you're never getting hit.
And in theory, they should stack too, right? Cast shield, then cast this on top of it if you really needed.
Well, no, because shield takes your reaction.
Yeah. And I think that right there is the thing that keeps it balanced. Is if I'm going to be within 5 feet of my party members and I want to protect them, I'm going to be like a paladin with the protection or interception fighting style and call it good there. But it is a really cool way and a really cinematically appropriate way for somebody who's been blessed by these metallic dragons to protect their allies and defend them. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. And the image of the wings kind of manifesting, and that's just that's great flavor.
It's amazing. Yeah, I love that. So the last one is the gift of the gem dragon. So the first one there is that you get to increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1.
It's a half,
which is nice.
That's already really good.
That's
super fun. And then the second one, this is another one of my favorites, is that when you take damage from a creature that's within 10 feet of you, you can then use your reaction to emanate telekinetic energy. And that creature that dealt you damage has to succeed on the strength saving throw. And if they fail, they take 2d8 force damage and they're pushed 10 feet away from you.
Whoa. I am so mad that this is not official content today. Because the build that I'm working on right now for next week would so take this feat.
That is a really cool way of, taking this as a wizard and having something hit you and then just suddenly be repelled away so that you can get out of there.
Again.
Yep. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Great for both defense and a little bit of offense at the same time, I think.
Yep.
That's cool.
And yeah, again, you could potentially, forcing movement on enemies can be really powerful if you play it right? And you have some control area of effect spells or damage area of effect spells kind of set up, and you're knocking them into it and things like that.
It's fun. It's nice to have more of these kind of reaction spells, because I feel like a lot of them are kind of few. You got Hellish Rebuke and a few others that are kind of few and far between. It's nice to have one more kind of in the mix.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, okay. So Tori, what do you think? Balance-wise, do you feel that these are fairly well balanced, overpowered, underpowered?
Honestly, I feel like they're well balanced. I do, and I can't wait as a player to use them.
they might not make it out of testing. Just be warned, viewers, because a lot of times UA will get put up there and then they'll be like, yeah, no, we decided not to release this. Yeah. So you never know. They feel really strong to me.
You think it's overpowered?
I don't know. I mean, I'm never one to complain about power creep because I like it. But I don't know.
Compared to other feats, they do feel a little bit on that stronger side.
I mean, like a half feat where you're already getting a +1, especially this Gem Dragon one, where you're already getting a +1 to intelligence, charisma, or wisdom, and then being able to do damage when they hit you and move them, that's really strong. And being able to cast a poor man's shield spell on yourself or an ally, in addition to, cure wounds, extra damage for the chromatic one, even though it's only for a minute once per day, still, I don't know, for a single feat, it feels really strong. I don't know if I'd go overpowered, but definitely on the upper end of balanced.
So you come to me with one of these feats and say you want to take them as a player. I'm going to tell you that you need to give me a good story reason for it. First of all, because they are specifically gifts from dragons. How did you obtain this, right? However, in that same vein, as a DM, I'd love to be able to be like, while you're on this mission for this gem dragon, you all get the gift of the gem dragon, and you can use it as if you had that feat, or kind of as an additional boon. So I'm very excited to be able to play with these as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, I hope this all makes it to release. All right, well, let's talk spells, Corey. There's quite a few.
I don't think we've had an Unearthed Arcana that did a bunch of spells with it too. Not a while, at least.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So there's a lot to get through.
Spells.
I will try to be as brief as possible. There's a lot of cool information in here and some hints at where this may be coming out in the future, but maybe not. Who knows? So I'm just going to go down. They put them in A to Z, and most of these are for sorcerers and wizards. Some dip into druids, some dip into artificers, and one dips into artificer and ranger, and one dips into warlock. So I'll try and one. Oh yeah, one bard as well.
Sorry,
or two bards. Yeah, yep. So it's kind of a little scattering. Most of it is non-divine characters, mostly this arcane, which makes sense for what dragons are. First, we've got Draconic Transformation, which is a 7th level transmutation spell. One bonus action to cast with a range of self. Notable that you need a statuette of a dragon worth at least 500 gold pieces, and that 500 gold piece requirement is a staple for a few of these spells moving forward, so there are some that are expensive. With Aurora, you draw on the magics of dragons to transform yourself, taking on draconic features. You get blind sight up to a range of 30 feet, and that allows you to also see invisible creatures unless they try to hide from you, which is really cool. You get incorporeal wings that give you 40 feet of movement, and incorporeal is noted in there probably because if you're in a dungeon, it means they're going through the walls but still allow you to move freely.
So I think
flying speed specifically.
Oh, right? yeah, flying speed. Sorry.
So I found it interesting that it says that you have blind sight and you can see the invisible creature. So it's not true sight, but you're just able to know where they're at.
Yep.
Unless they successfully hide from you.
Yeah, you can see an invisible creature unless it successfully hides from you. Yeah, so you're able to see where they are, which makes sense with blind sight. Sometimes, it tremor sense as well. But then also, when you finish casting the spell, and every round as a bonus action, you can do a breath of energy and a 30-foot cone, and everybody makes a dexterity saving throw, or takes 3d8 force damage from it. It's really cool. It feels like an upgrade on the dragon's breath. It's a concentration spell for up to a minute. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. I think it's nice, but I don't nearly think it's as awesome as I expect from a spell called Draconic Transformation.
And for a 7th level spell slot,
and
too.
that is a huge
I mean,
spell.
I can
sorcerers and wizards only.
It's kind of like there's lots of spells that give you flight, right? or abilities and things that will give you flight, right? Fly is a 3rd level spell. There are working around blind sense and invisibility is a little trickier, but there are ways to do that. It just seems a little bit weird to have like you can fly and blind sense and a kind of fairly weak by the time you get 7th level spells. Fairly weak AoE Dragon's Breath. Granted, it's a bonus action, so that's nice.
And it's 30 foot rather than 15, I think, for Dragon's Breath.
Yeah. It just feels a little, it feels like, I'm not sure how often I would use this.
Yep.
Only in maybe some niche situations or when I didn't have a great use for my bonus action otherwise, and it's just a nice way to kind of tack on some additional potentially AoE, area of effect damage.
Fighting a bunch of shadows in a dark corridor or something. Like 30 of them, breath weapon.
Yep. The next one is actually really cool, though. Fizzban's Platinum Shield. So if anybody is familiar, it is a Dragonlance character. He's an old kind of kooky mage from what I read, but he's also the avatar of Paladin.
Yeah,
spoilers.
He's Zeus in the Dragonlance world, basically.
And that would lead me to think that this is a Dragonlance supplement, but there's other contradictory stuff later on. So don't get too excited.
Calm down.
Don't get too excited.
We played.
spray bottle.
Sorry. Side note, like in the original AD&D, and I don't know if versions since have had this, but there was a Dragonlance supplement, actual official AD&D book, and me and my friends back in the day played it and loved it.
Well, anyway, this is a 6th level abjuration spell. Costs 1 action, and it's a range of 60 feet. You need a platinum plated dragon scale worth at least 500 gold pieces. So good luck getting it. But if you can, this concentration spell can be used for up to a minute, and it surrounds a creature in silvery light, and you can choose yourself or another creature, and they shed dim light out to 5 feet, which is, not really what we're here for. As a bonus action, you can move it to another creature, so you can constantly be shifting this, and they gain the following benefits. Half cover, so +2 bonus to AC, which stacks with other bonuses to AC, like Shield of Faith.
And saving throws as well.
And saving throws, yeah.
Or is it just like dex saves?
I think it might provide something for dex saves. They have resistance to the chromatic dragon types: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison. And then if they are subjected to, they basically get evasion. If they're subjected to a dexterity saving throw and they would deal half damage on a save, they get no damage on a save and only half damage on a failure. So that's a really cool spell that you can constantly shift to new target.
Very strong. It is a 6th level spell, so most classes will only be able to cast it once per day until you get super high level, and not until 11th level.
But it's I think that's a very cool investment to help somebody in a tight situation. So the next spell is Flame Stride. And we were talking about this off the stream or off the camera here, and we were all very excited about it.
So excited! This is so cool. This is my favorite. This might be my favorite part of the whole Unearthed Arcana.
So it's available to artificers, rangers, sorcerers, and wizards. So that's got the biggest range so far of who it's available to. It's a bonus action 3rd level transmutation, and it's again concentration up to a minute. No component requirements for this, and you cast it on yourself. Billowing flames of a dragon cover your feet, granting you explosive speed. For the duration, your speed increases by 20 feet, and moving doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. And then when you move within 5 feet of a creature or an object that isn't being worn or carried, you deal 1d6 fire damage to it from your trail of heat. No save, no attack roll, just 1d6 fire damage. And then a creature can only take that damage once per turn, obviously. So at higher levels, though, you also get an additional 5 feet of movement for each level and an additional 1d6 fire damage for each level above. So casting it at the 6th level gives you an extra 15 feet, so a total of 35 feet of movement on top of your movement, and 3d6 fire damage to anything that you come into contact with.
That's crazy.
It would be like, you guys know I've already started working on a build here where I'm like, okay, I'm a monk. Maybe rogue for cunning action, although monks can kind of do the same thing, but then you got to spend key points. But like sorcerer levels, like upcasting, I'm a wood elf. Like I'm probably taking the mobile feat and just like really just stacking as much move speed as you possibly can, and just like,
for inspiration,
unarmed striking stuff.
That's crazy.
Just like that would be fun.
The next one, by comparison, seems a little lackluster, but I actually really like it as well. So this is called Icing Death's Frost. Now, Icing Death is the nickname of a dragon up north, up past the spine of the world in the Forgotten Realms. His real name, and oh gosh, forgive me, is Ingelio Costimi Zillion.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
And I don't know if I pronounced that right or not, but he was killed by Drista Worden and Wolfgar back in one of the, I think it was in one of the Icewind Dale trilogy books. And they killed him and they took his horde, basically. But now it's also, Icing Death is also one of the names of Drist's weapons. One of the weapons he took the name of it.
Cool.
Yeah, which is really cool. But that also implies that maybe this isn't Dragonlance, because we're talking about Forgotten Realms stuff as well. Who knows?
Maybe they'll do like a kind of
crossover,
compendium.
Could be cool. I'd love to see a Dragonlance setting with like a Dragon Knight subclass for fighter or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is a second level spell, Evocation, 1 action. It's basically a breath weapon. A con saving throw. It does half damage on a success, but on a failure, it does 3d8 cold damage, and it covers the target in ice for 1 minute. Right. Now, what that means is your movement speed is 0. But you can use an action to break out of the ice or break somebody else's ice as well. Nice. Now, as a player, this seems it just seems like, maybe I'd rather use a dragon breath or something else. But as a GM, I want to use this with my wizards.
Yeah.
And it is available for sorcerers and wizards, and it's something that makes your players like really think about positioning and really think about taking the choice between being able to move or breaking somebody else out. Like, it's a really cool spell for an NPC wizard.
I think for a second level spell to do 3d8 damage in an area with control is pretty strong.
Yeah, it just seems very simple.
Spell. Yeah.
I'd wonder if they drop the damage after it comes out. But
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Just by a little. Or like it'd do a 3d6.
Maybe 2d8 or 3d6 or something.
Yeah.
And then notably, you can do an extra d8 cold damage for every spell slot of 3rd or higher. Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's nice.
The next one is called, it is pronounced, and again, this is pronunciation from the Forgotten Realms wiki, Nayer's Mischief. Yeah, I know it's spelled Nathar. That's how I would pronounce it. Yeah, but it is pronounced. It is based on Nayer Sekak, which is the god of pseudo dragons and fairy dragons in the Forgotten Realms. And if anybody knows fairy dragons or pseudo dragons, you know that they can be very mischievous, and this thing is no exception to that.
My least favorite thing in the Unearthed Arcana.
I know.
It's the wild magic spell.
Yep. So second level illusion, 1 action within 60 feet. Nothing but a piece of crust from an apple pie is all you need for this spell. So a component pouch.
I love it.
And then it can last for up to a minute. You create a 20-foot cube centered on a point you choose within range with Fey and Draconic magic. You roll on the Mischievous Surge table. Oh, love me some tables to determine the magical effect produced. And then at the start of each of your turns, you can move the cube up to 10 feet and re-roll on the table with no action required, which I think is really cool for this, because it means that you're not using a bonus action just to shift your area control. So the different effects are, and you can make them smell apple pie and become charmed if they fail a wisdom saving throw. Bouquets of flowers appear all around them, and then each creature has to make a dexterity saving throw or be blinded because they spray water in their faces. Each creature in the cube must make a wisdom saving throw or begin giggling until the start of your next turn. A giggling creature is incapacitated and uses all of its movement to move in a random direction. So it's basically incapacitating them, but also making it so that they move either farther away from you, closer to you, diagonally.
It's kind of like Tasha's.
Yep. It's kind of like Tasha's. And then the last one is drops of molasses appear and hover in the cube, turning it into difficult terrain until the start of your next turn. Which that one seems the most simple, but I like that one a lot.
We've entered Candyland D&D version.
That's awesome.
Don't let me Candy Cane Forest.
Don't let Dr. Chaos find this one.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll try and hide it from him. He already knows. And that one is available to bards, sorcerers, and wizards. Of course, it's available to bards.
Bards, of course, yeah.
Okay, so the next spell that we have is a gem dragon spell. This is called Ruthalim's Psychic Lance. And Ruthalim is a paranoid emerald dragon in Forgotten Realms who apparently boasted a collection of up to 200 spells in his memory and up to 100 prepared at one time. He is a very he's a very paranoid dragon, though, and this Psychic Lance kind of embodies that. It's a 4th level enchantment spell with 120-foot range requiring 1 action. Basically what you do is you point or you target a creature within range, or you name a creature by name within, and if they're within range, this will target them through walls, through invisibility, through any sort of hiding. It does not benefit from any cover or invisibility. They must make a intelligence saving throw or take 10d6 psychic damage and become incapacitated until the start of your next turn. And again, this is a 4th level spell.
This is getting nerfed.
That has to get nerfed.
So,
that's
crazy.
Avatar. What are the Avatar dude that shoots things from his forehead?
Yeah.
And Yondu, they had a baby.
Yeah.
So one other thing to note about this spell is if you name a creature and they are not within range of the spell, it fizzles and the spell slot is not consumed. You get it back.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So this is a great thing to use against that one pesky thief that decided to steal your magic invisibility ring and run off.
Hey, is that little orphan that stole from us in the first campaign nearby? Kill him.
10d6. Okay.
Yes.
Let me get this straight. 10d6. Intelligence save, right? Which is not particularly high for most monsters, right? They can be invisible. You just have to name them. It can home. It's like a homing missile. It can go around corners, right?
This is for
and they can be then they'll be incapacitated if they fail their save.
Yeah.
This is for the GM for the all bear totem team. Like you go have a
Psychic
guy
Psychic Lance. Yep.
Yeah, that is really strong.
I tell you what. I would have loved to have this as Strahd. I would have playing Strahd. I would have loved to be able to target one person and force them to be incapacitated for a round, because getting overwhelmed by sheer numbers is something that Strahd apparently is weak against.
As are most creatures.
Same with the ancient white dragons.
Yep.
All right, coming down the home stretch.
Yes, we got one more spell to get with, and I like it, but I'm not sure completely about it, and it's called Summon Draconic Spirit, and it kind of goes based off the rules that Tasha's established for summoning creatures. It gives you bonuses based on your proficiency, etc. Basically, you call forth a Draconic Spirit. It manifests in an unoccupied space that you can see within range. It can either be chromatic, gem, or metallic, and its resistances are based on that. Notably, it gets, and I can read all about, like, it basically follows your commands, etc., etc.
Just like the other summon spells. Yeah.
Just like the other summons. And then you can use other higher spell slots to summon it as well, which I don't know if that's typical.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it'll get additional attacks based on half of its spell level.
So obviously the thing that we need to talk about is what this Draconic Spirit is. And it starts out with an armor class of 14 plus the level of the spell, so minimum of 19.
Mm-hmm.
It lasts for up to an hour, by the way. Oh, and very importantly, you need to have an art object from a dragon horde worth at least 500 gold pieces. So this isn't something that you can get lightly. You need to, like, find that specific thing that might be hard to come by.
I didn't look at these components. They're not particularly
They're not
easy
cheap
to come by a lot of the time. I mean, usually gold is kind of whatever, but putting these additional qualifiers on them make them more like the object of a quest.
Yep, which I think is really cool, and I think it's a great reward to be like, yes, now I can use this spell that I've got, and it is really awesome.
Yeah.
So you get 50 hit points on this creature, plus 10 for every spell level above 5th that you cast it at. You get resistance, or it gets damage resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison if you choose chromatic or metallic, and then force, necrotic, psychic, radiant, thunder if you choose gem. And that's not a single resistance; it's all of them.
And it's shared. It's shared with you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well,
you do get the shared resistances. Yeah, you choose one of its resistances, and you have resistance to that damage type, which I think is really cool in itself. You get down to the attack, and it's got a multi-attack where it uses its breath weapon, which is a 30-foot cone that requires a dexterity saving throw or 2d6 damage of your type, of your choice of a damage type it has resistance to, and then half as much on a successful one. So not really a lot of damage there. 2d6 compared to like for a 5th level spell doesn't seem like a lot. But then it also does a number of bite and claw attacks equal to half of the spell's level.
Yeah.
Which is, and then it's rounded down. So 2 at 5th level. Right, and then at 9th, it does 4.
So 1d6 plus 4 plus the spell's level piercing damage. Yeah. So when you add the bite and claw, and so let's say you cast this as a 6th level spell, right? It would get 3 attacks, right, that hit for 1d6 plus 4 plus the spell's level piercing damage, so plus 6, so plus 10 total. 1d6 plus 10 3 times, plus a breath weapon, AoE, 2d6 damage.
Yeah,
this is the new king or queen of the summoning spells. If it makes it to release in this state,
I don't see it making it.
And notably, it can also fly up to 80 feet. Okay, so it is a corporeal form, so you could technically ride it if you wanted to.
Dragon mounts.
That in mind, but notably, letting it fly means that it can fly over a monster and attack it from above, freeing up space around you for 8 skeletons.
Give or take.
Putting it out there, yeah.
As long as you didn't use the breath weapon, because then it's going to decimate the skeletons too. That's really strong. I don't know. I mean, we kind of have been sort of casting our judgment on these as we've gone on, but I don't know, Corey, if you had any that really stood out to you as being particularly overpowered or underpowered.
I think that the psychic lance is pretty overpowered. I can see that, especially because it doesn't expend a spell slot. That means that a wizard looking for somebody, a wizard can walk down a hallway and just keep trying to cast it with their name. And if they're not in range yet,
Tasselhoff.
Yep, exactly. It doesn't do anything. Yep, and you don't use any resources. That's going to be annoying as a GM to be like, all right, well, I guess you can see when an invisible creature is within range then, if you know the name of it.
As long as it's not an ally that you're searching for, because you might accidentally kill them.
I don't think that there's any that are too much more powerful than that. The Platinum Shield and Draconic Transformation are okay. Platinum Shield is going to be really cool for utility. I don't see anything else here that really jumps out to me. I like the Draconic Spirit. I think an entire group of Dragonborn sorcerers that summon Draconic Spirits and then ride them, I think that's a really cool concept.
Dragon Riders, yeah.
Well, there's Dragonlance for you.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's exactly Dragonlance.
Give them a nice weapon that they can use in mounted combat. Well, awesome. I think that was a pretty good overview.
I'm just excited that a lot of this stuff that they're starting to expand those horizons for the feats and some other stuff, and not just kind of like, well, this is only for Draconic.
Yeah, there was a lot of content here, and I'm really excited about all of it, even though I think some of it's a little OP.
Yeah.
But anyway,
gem dragons.
Well, thank you to my DMs for joining me today as always, and thanks to you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. Please do like and subscribe and comment, and consider joining the channel if you like what you see and you want to support us. It's very helpful to help us kind of create more content and get even better at what we do. So anyway, yeah, that was it. Thanks to everyone. Love you guys, and hope you have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.